That's what I said. It's hard to kill a
better.
cactus. How did you do it?
Wow.
Welcome to Cloud Realities, a conversation show exploring the practical and exciting alternate realities that can be unleashed through cloud-driven transformation. I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Sjoukje Rob.
And I'm Rob Kernahan.
And today we're going to continue with an important topic of gender balance in tech. It's something that we are extremely passionate about on the show, and we're going to come at it from a slightly different perspective this time, which is how do you break into tech, especially when you're returning from having children? But before that, Rob, as usual, has been wandering around holding his head and is confused about something else this week. So Rob, what are you confused about now?
Well, Dave, this week I'm mainly perplexed about hybrid working and what's going to happen next. So 2020 hits, COVID arrives, we all have to learn very quickly to work remotely. Actually, what we find is it does work. Many businesses survived and some have thrived on the hybrid point.
The pandemic is a testament to that, I think.
Taught us fast, didn't it? The chaos came and we learned fast to deal with the complexity. But now we see some organizations sort of demanding people come back to work, and many have built a hybrid policy which continues to work in the vein and give people that flexibility that's so powerful. And I'm wondering if we're just going to end up resetting back to pre-COVID, or if the hybrid patterns that are proving themselves to be working will sustain. So I'm a bit confused about where we're all going to end up with the old hybrid working thing.
I mean, I've got to say, from a personal point of view, I'd be pretty disappointed if we just ended up back where we started.
Me too. And I was wondering the same thing this week, Rob. So you're not the only one who is
joint
confused.
confusion. That's good then. Double trouble on that one. Yeah. And I just, you see, and the irony being that a very large company that made its business out of video conferencing has demanded its workers return to the office. And I just thought the deep irony associated with that, and that it got all over the press for obvious reasons.
Dictionary definition of irony.
Well, not the Shakespearean version, but the new one.
I think the big miss here for organizations that are so rushing back to the industrial revolution version of what work looks like is work-life balance, but not in the hey, I've got work-life balance, but work-life balance in the way that it drives a level of satisfaction in your, kind of employees' life, and their ability to bring their whole selves to work. And I don't mean that in a cliched way, but in a way that, certain people who've got certain lifestyles might not be able to work in a traditional 9-to-5 way. So there is something about that to me that just seems wrong-headed, particularly in the sort of work where, really, for the vast majority of it, if you're just beavering away doing, productivity work or something like that most of us do, you really do get a lot done by just doing it at home rather than getting disrupted in the office the whole time.
And it's the type of work as well. And we've been talking about telecommuting since the 80s and the tomorrow's world type view of the big, you can watch people on the video screen. And then we actually get to the maturity of the technology and learn it through COVID. Everybody says, right, back to the office. And it's like, I hope that we have learned and it'll spring back in the other direction.
I hope so too.
There's been a lot of big voices, haven't there, of the return to the office culture. I hope there's going to be some brave big voices that speak out for why actually hybrid is extremely important going forward.
Yeah. For instance, in the Netherlands, we have huge traffic issues at the moment. It costs society a lot of money. So that's also one of the reasons why we should stick on hybrid working, right?
Well, right. Not to mention carbon footprint. Yeah. So just like so many reasons to keep stepping forward and accept the sort of way better new normal than we had before. So what you might also note today is that Rob and I are both suffering with some fairly heady colds.
Although I do think you're seeking more sympathy than me, Dave, bringing it up. I was just going to let it fly, ride it out, hope nobody spots it, but you had to bring it up.
I'm putting it out there less for sympathy, more for just giving me a bit of a break if I'm more waffly than normal.
Or is the hope that there's a lot of little violins playing somewhere out there for you when they hear this? I think it's
okay
more that, isn't it?
I'm okay without the sympathy. The sympathy's fine. Just give me a bit of a break if I'm a bit haphazard today. But anyway, look, saving us from all of this confusion, I am delighted to say that joining us this week to talk about Supermums is Heather Black, founder and CEO of Supermums. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. Would you like to just say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and Supermums itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So I launched Supermums 7 years ago to help bring more women into the tech sector. And this was because we have a digital skills gap in technology and a lot of businesses are feeling that pain. And so we also equally work with those businesses to hire diverse tech teams. So it's really about connecting all of those dots and making sure the businesses really understand the amazing talent opportunities there are. And we are delighted to have worked with over 200 companies, to upskilled over 1,000 people globally as Salesforce technology professionals. And just, I feel like a proud parent, right? They're doing amazing things in the industry now, 7 years on. And so, I can't wait to share more about that with you today.
So why don't we start with how this all came together, Heather? So why don't you take us back to the beginning of your thinking around Supermums and the situation that you were in at the time and help us understand the journey that you went on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I found myself in a position where I'd been running a nonprofit for a while and I had to rethink what I was going to do differently. And I was just about to start a family and move out of the city. And I was like, oh God, what do I do that I can earn as well as I've been doing before, but and also have flexibility and part-time. And was faced with a bit of a dilemma. And I suppose I had to come to a decision of like, well, what is it that I could do? What are the options? It's like almost being back at school, right? Where you're thinking, I don't know what to do. I'm confused. And where do I start looking for work experience? I mean, we had exactly the same situation at school, right? We didn't know, and there was a mill round and everything else. Anyway, so obviously I went back to looking at what was it that I had really enjoyed whilst working, and the journey that I'd been on whilst I was running the non-profit that I had been running for 7 years is I had started using Salesforce CRM for that non-profit. And I'd sat for a couple of years with these free licenses for a CRM and had no idea what it did or could do. And you only really get a sense of what it is when somebody shows you and tells you. And showing you was the key thing for me. I saw a demo, understood how they used it for theirs, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why didn't I know about it before? Yeah. And so anybody listening to this that's, not sure about what it is and whether it's a career for them, is just do the research, ask people, get them to show you things and understand things, because otherwise you never really know. And what that led for me was a journey where I implemented Salesforce CRM for my nonprofit organization. I had used it to manage all our delivery, our marketing, our sales, our customer service. And it helped me grow my nonprofit from 100K to 1.3 million in a year, from 4 staff to 40 staff.
Wow.
Because I was able to win more contracts, meet compliant requirements, do the reporting, give confidence to people.
And just to digress slightly, and it genuinely had that sort of 10xing impact.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And I was only 26 right at the time. So I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Yeah. So I had a very quick learning curve, but it was instrumental in helping me build my nonprofit. And I had then obviously a real passion for it. And on that journey, I was probably, I don't know if I would say rare one of the CEOs, but as the CEO of that nonprofit, I was also the Salesforce admin. And I had, done the admin course.
And chief team maker.
Everything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'd done the admin course with Salesforce and the advanced admin course. And so I was building the system myself. I was like, I can do this myself. It's fine. And after a couple of rebuilds through the training that I did, I kind of had a great system that did everything I needed and hence helped us grow. And within that nonprofit, it was very much focused on coaching entrepreneurs, young professionals aged 18 to 30 to help them start and grow businesses. So I was business coach by trade. We had 20 coaches at our prime. A lot of it was government funded. And the reason that nonprofit kind of came to a halt is that Conservatives came in and all the political funding changed. And despite, as I could for a couple of years, try to keep it going, the funding landscape had gone to favour bigger corporate enterprises that had the budgets and not the smaller non-profits on the ground. So it became very difficult to sustain that model, which is why I was at that point of going, I need to do something different. Now, because of my passion for Salesforce and having seen what it did, I did, again, more kind of exploratory work, understanding, well, what are these jobs? I didn't have a background in tech, didn't know really what it was, didn't know about the job skills. But when I started researching and looking into it more and talking to people is so important. And I'll talk about how we do that and help mums now understand what it is. Is I got to realize I had lots of transferable skills and I didn't really realize it. And I was like, actually, I can do all of these things. And there was additional training that I certainly did, but I had an understanding and familiarity with a lot of those things. So I repositioned myself as a Salesforce consultant, retrained, started working with nonprofits directly 3 days a week whilst having my first child, worked part-time, completely virtually, because she would only take breast milk for the first year. So that was it. But I was earning 60K, bringing in 60K, working 3 days a week virtually at home whilst having a newborn. And I did that for 4 years and realized that actually other mums needed to know about this as a career choice. Like, this was definitely achievable, a great opportunity. There's lots of women that think that the jobs out there are, I can't have a career, I have to have a low paid job, and a lot of the flexible jobs are, say lower paid and don't necessarily sort of give you that variety. And so I launched Supermums with a passion to educate women about what is possible and to help them relaunch a career into the tech industry and talk about the 6 different job roles they could have and, help them set up for success. And the biggest feedback I get from people is, you've changed my life. And that is such a rewarding thing to have as part of your job every day. So, 7 years on, it's really exciting to see where we are now.
Well, that's cool. And then from where the backgrounds that the people come in from to retrain into this new discipline, is that a very diverse set of people that you help retrain, or is there particular groups you find who gravitate towards it more? What's the sort of starting position from those people before they take this change journey?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, everybody asks me that. I mean, we've had over 1,200 people go through the program now over 7 years. The diversity is huge. I've had people who've been florists, diamond retailers, teachers, lawyers, wow, accountants, HR people, customer service staff, working hospitality managers. I talk a lot about industry verticals. So Salesforce CRM is implemented in a lot of specific industry verticals. So having that industry background and experience is one specific area that you kind of want to align to, because employers in the Salesforce space want to hire people with relevant industry experience, even above and beyond Salesforce, right? Because you can teach Salesforce. You can't teach somebody years of working in retail or automotive or media or telecoms. And then there's a whole lot of softer transferable skills. So a lot of our talent, we class as mature talent, in that they already have management skills, project management skills, business improvement skills, communication skills, leadership skills, because they've all worked in previous roles before. And so, they bring all that to the fore. So there's no real entry criteria as such.
And the blockers that they were feeling, what were they? If you could just dig into those things. Is it the fact that they simply weren't aware of what might go on in the Salesforce world and the opportunities within that? Or is it specifically that they were put off by something? You read quite a lot about things like the way that job adverts are phrased can be very off-putting for people in specific situations. Have you done any work on understanding that, and how are you cutting through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think there's different lenses to look at this. People assume that careers in tech is coding. So I talk about the 6 different job roles, and I actually did a quiz where people can look at their parenting skills and attributes, and then it matches them to a job in the Salesforce sector, to go, actually, this job could suit you because of X, Y, Z and the way that you kind of parent.
Is that like things like chaos management, noise management?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Crowd
people
control.
management generally, yeah. Exactly, like, your different parenting styles. So trying to get people to understand, their traits can align to a career in tech and not talk about necessarily the tech bit of it. So I think that's one lens, is like, well, who are you as a person and which job would suit you? The second is people sometimes think it's a scam. Like you're saying, well, you could earn 60k a year. Right, really right. Rubbish. I've actually been called like, when you're posting in these Facebook groups, some people are like, and it's like, it's not.
I think it's one of those things where you can work from home and you can do this.
Work 15 minutes and earn £1 million.
Well, that's it, right? So I have to be really careful, because in some ways, telling them what the salary is, and that we share this average salaries, right? Which is based on research and everything. And, they don't believe it. And I'm like, seriously, you can do this. And we have to clearly articulate that, look, it doesn't mean just getting your admin cert and then you're going to earn that much. It means that, these are all the transferable skills and experience you would need. Some of you might do it quicker in a year because you've got more transferable skills than others. For others, it might be a couple of years on that journey, or, 3 years. And it depends on how much they study as well. So we sort of share the timeline of what certifications they would need to do, because you have to keep that lifelong learning going. What transferable skills would be relevant, because again, there might be other softer skills they need to train up in and develop. So at Supermums, we added in our training course, our consultancy skills training course that teaches them business analysis, agile project management, and change management, because we wanted to provide that whole package of training rather than just the admin, to say, well, we want to get you to that salary potential, but it's going to require you to invest in, this suite of training if you haven't got it already. And, obviously with that, when I did the training and I invested that money, I'm like, well, I'm earning £400 day rates. So if I'm spending, £4,000 on a course, I'm going to get that back in 10 days work, right? It's no brainer. So we have to obviously clearly show the ROI. If they're going to invest in a course, what the earning potential would be, how you would get there. And so it's a lot of education. I get them to write a career plan template, almost like if you were starting a business, you write your business plan template, because unless you write down all the things that are going around in your head, like, this is the sort of job role that would suit me. This is the earning, but this is what I need to do to get there. These are my transferable skills. They have to write it all down and consolidate it for themselves to believe it. And then quite often they might need to share that with a partner or their parent or whatever. If they need to sort of, they're asking somebody to put up the money for it, they need to be able to sort of show it and demonstrate it. So the blockers can be also that they might listen and hear, but then if their partner is the main breadwinner and they're going to try to convince their partner to give them £2,000 for something, they have to do a business pitch to their partner. And I shouldn't laugh, but that's the reality, right? And so we've had partners come on the phone with our team, because I have 2 full-time career consultants really who spend all their time talking to people who are interested, and talking them through their transferable skills, what it could look like, what the course entails, to help them make an informed decision. And that might not just be them, it might be whoever else is funding this, transition as well. So it's a lot of work educating people and being very sensitive of, how people might perceive it.
What it seems to demonstrate to me is just the amount of effort and work that needs to go in to connect some talent to some opportunities. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah.
Now, what is it that you perceive that employers, and let's leave that completely generic because it is a problem, let's face it, in way too many of the world's companies, this. But what is it that employers who actually, if you ask them, would be dying to take on some of this talent that you're talking about, but somehow these things aren't connecting without the help of somebody like you in the middle who is sort of coaching and helping people realize that the skills that they've got. If you take Supermums away for a second and look at the market, what's your perspective of what's missing there? And what should employers be leaning into providing to help with something like this?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So employers have said to me, we want people with industry experience and these transferable skills. I think sometimes there can be a perception of what mums are. There can be an assumption that they only want part-time virtual work, which For some, definitely, but not for everybody. You know, some people want to get out of the house. Somebody wants full-time work. People wants full-time hours, but flexible hours. So it's not necessary to still pick up the kids and work later. And, you know, so there's a perception and perhaps lack of understanding around, you know, what type of work people might want. I think a lot of the women coming back to work, if had time off, are really hungry for career development and are really hungry to get back in. And they are so motivated, so fired up, and so like almost like 110% into this that, you know, Davina, who won the Trailblazer Graduate of the Year award through Supermums this year, you know, that 2-year development journey I talked about, she did it in a year. And she's got a 20k pay increase, you know, so she has just like accelerated her growth because she's been like, I'm doing this and I'm going to nail it. But, you know, if I go back to sort of, I suppose, to shed the light on it, she'd been a system manager previously, right? She'd been a CRM manager. So she was familiar with those sorts of things. She hadn't worked with Salesforce before, but she'd managed a database for an organization. And I like it now, it's my 7-year anniversary, so I'm a bit in the reminiscent stage. But on the very first course, I had somebody who'd had a career break for 4 or 5 years, but she'd been a VP of CRM systems at Lehman Brothers previously in the finance, right? And then we'd also had somebody who had been a technical sales engineer at IBM who'd had, you know, 3 years. We placed them straight away in great roles. And so, you know, yes, these people have had career breaks. Yes, they've had kids, but their backgrounds are incredible. You know, their backgrounds are really transferable, and people seem to be blocked with thinking that. And I'm like, why? So there's a lot to offer employers.
And I think back to your points and Dave's question, it feels like you are the catalyst that is connecting two quite disconnected worlds. It feels like the corporate world needs to do a lot more to try and get into other areas for potential recruitment. So you're acting as that broker to get people back into highly skilled roles. And that seems to be very rewarding and is working well. But it does call out that corporates might be too disconnected from places they should be hunting for talent, basically.
Absolutely.
Or maybe put in a bit more effort.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, you can actually. Could you try a bit harder, please? Because actually, what you're doing and the stories you're telling, very rewarding, but also providing critical skill into businesses who, as we said, can really need it and are desperate for it.
Well, yeah, it's often bemoaned that the lack of girls and young women going into STEM subjects in schools is causing a pipeline issue for getting some real gender balance into the tech sector at the moment. And we've talked to organizations like Women in Data, and they reflect the same problem. And actually, there's this whole, what you're talking about here is this whole, you know, community of people who are coming back after having kids and taking doing the right thing, taking time off to spend with their children and bring up children. There's a whole kind of untapped space in tech, it seems to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, obviously we're not representing all employers. There's some that haven't tapped into this great resource of talent yet. Yeah, sure. But we've, you know, at Supermums, we've worked with 200 companies to place talent. And they've been, you know, anything from big enterprise customers to Salesforce consultancies to small non-profits and everything in between. And so some companies are really accessing this and have fueled their pipelines and have found talent to be incredible assets. And so if you're a company listening to this that hasn't tapped into this, then you are missing out, you know, because you can be, I've had companies unfortunately say, oh, we can't hire mums. And I'm like, what? How do you even say that?
How can you get away with saying that? It's just like, what?
To me, I was like, how do I react to that? Okay, because there's this immediate perception of, I don't know, it's really weird.
It's like saying, like, we don't hire humans.
I just don't get it. Because they assume that these parts, you know, they want part-time virtual work, which is say some people do, and maybe that's not the right fit for that organization. But rather than say that, it's kind of like, well, what we're needing is this kind of skill set. Do you have any trainees? And I say trainees rather than mums, because 20% are male that we've had through our program. Not all dads or mums, you know, we are accessible and open to everybody. But what's really lovely is they all support our mission of what we're trying to do. And, you know, we've had 60-70% on average per cohort who are from BME groups as well. So we've got a really diverse range of people coming through. And it's more about, what is it, the skills you need? It shouldn't be, you want a good gender balance, you want a good diverse balance. But people discriminate before they've even walked in the door because of the perception for some reason.
There's all those tests where they do blind CVs and they change various. It's horrendous what bias exists, unconscious bias often in organisations towards people that and there's a lot to be tackled, like the STEM issue and this issue. It is rampant and everywhere, and it feels like it's a massive mountain to climb to break the biases, isn't it?
Well, we've talked about this quite a bit on the show, that because the world's at a bit of a pivot moment with the introduction of very serious artificial intelligence technologies that are already with us and are just going to accelerate over the next few years, that having that bias then taken from the humans that have introduced the bias to start with, and then embedding that in data.
Coded it,
it just means that for future generations, that same idiocy is going to pervade. And it seems to me that there's many, very, many good reasons to do the sort of thing that you're describing. But if nothing else, that seems like an absolutely critical mission right now, is to introduce proper balance into teams and data, and make sure, therefore, that how we're training artificial intelligence in future is going to have a better balance than the one that we've, humans so far seem to have put into the, system. Let's put it like that. So if you were going to issue a call to action, Heather, to potential mums that are out there that might be listening to this, or that want to get back into the workforce, or want to break into tech generally, what advice would you give?
So my advice for those that are interested in Supermums and exploring career opportunities, right, wherever you are, come and explore the Salesforce career with Supermums as one of your options out of a few, I guess. We, for example, offer like a 5-day challenge where I share a lot of videos that I've put together and some things to look at to help you understand it. So don't sit there and think there's no options. Get your market research hat on. Speak to people. We have a team that you can speak to other people in the industry, reach out. We can also make introductions and make, some informed decisions about, what are the options available and whether it suits you or not. So you can tick that off the list and say yes or no, thank you. And keep doing that till you find the thing that really excites you. And that's, some of the people that look into our course can make the decision very quickly because they're on it. They need to make a decision now. Whereas we've had other people that will, sit and monitor and review for a year or so because they're on maternity leave and are sort of looking at, what do I do next? I don't really want to go back to that other job. So don't be afraid. Don't think there's no options. We're here to talk to you if you want to find out a little bit more.
What have you been looking at this week?
So each week I do some research on related ideas and transformation in tech, and this week I thought we should take a look at: to attract more women in tech, the industry needs to change. So it's a very exciting time to work within the tech industry. Great strides are being made to encourage diverse perspectives in the workplace. However, in today's much more progressive and democratized corporate landscape, we are still not giving women enough opportunities or the space needed to truly lead within the sector. So the tech industry needs to make changes in order to attract more women and encourage diversity. And to address this, leaders must unite to encourage more girls and young women to pursue education and careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. Female leaders in tech should champion the valuable skills and expertise that women bring to the table. And the industry must address pay equity and the gender pay gap. So a question: do we agree with this, or are there any additional steps that can be taken to attract more women in tech?
So it seems to me, Heather, this is right in the middle of the problem that you're dealing with. And one of the dynamics that Sjoukje raises there is one we didn't actually touch on earlier. And you did talk a lot about how the work that you're doing can help open up new ways of earning for people who have maybe been struggling to break into the tech sector. But one thing we didn't cover was pay equality. and gender equality in pay. Do you have a perspective on that?
So we do some support around career progression, which is going back to this 2-year plan. So I get on my soapbox sometimes because I was speaking to some of our supermums that have been in jobs, maybe 3-4 years, and they've hardly had a pay increase, and they're worried about asking, and they're worried about leaving because they've got a good deal now. And because I work part-time, I should just be happy that I've got a part-time job and I'm getting paid. I'm like, no, you want to have that plan. Now, if they haven't done any other certifications or anything, then, arguably they've got more experience than certs. But I think, there has to be, the best practice or scenario that we champion within Supermums is like, look, what is your progression framework? If you've got a lot of stuff going on, you can keep building your experience, but you can keep building your certifications and knowledge. And with that should be salary increments, etc., and promotional opportunities. And that might be, it's a discussion you need to have with your employer from the outset of getting a job. What is my progression framework here? What is it I need to work towards? Where can I go? What's my progression within this job role and job title, and what would it look like wider? And to be really honest with them up front, to say, well, look, I am hungry to get to this salary. I know I can get there. I might be with you for 1.5 years. If you can't offer me more than that, then that might be it. And then I might go somewhere else, And I think you've got to you've got to show your passion and enthusiasm of what you're wanting and where you're wanting to go, because people love that. And they then know and can budget for it, right? If they want to keep you and be aware of it, because there is great career opportunities where you can earn well, and women have to sell themselves. They have to have that clarity and not feel like, oh, I should be just happy because I'm working and I'm getting that flexibility. I think things in terms of pay equality, encouraging and understanding what the benchmarks are, within the organisation for pay. It's not openly talked about, right? But they might have to declare it. You could find out, but I think everybody should have their job specs around and what the pay grades are, and to understand that, and to just champion your corner. And if you can get comparatives, then make sure that you feel like you're on the right progression framework and you're earning what you want to earn.
I think one of the things that struck me there with those points was what the Supermums organisation doing is creating that connectivity between a group of people who aren't quite sure how to get back or get into tech, and corporates who need that skill. And it also seems that, we discussed it a little bit earlier, that needs to be established and curated, and that catalyst function that you're providing, well, it needs to just grow and grow and grow and keep going from success to success to make it ever more, you can attract an even larger audience around. Now, I was going to ask you, have other organizations asked you if they want to replicate or copy what you're doing, or try and use what you've got to expand the area of influence to attract even more into the tech game?
I mean, there are organizations springing up all over the world to address the talent gap within digital skills, because businesses are hurting because they can't move, they can't compete, they don't have the talent. And, we need to attract more people into this industry. So there is definitely a demand. I think, having run this organisation for 7 years, there is a very robust methodology to our process. And there have been initiatives set up, with 10% input to kind of our approach and methodology that don't work, because there isn't the formula behind it. There isn't the this is our full-time job. There's 25 of us working in this team, working globally to support, a whole group of trainees globally every day. It's not just a side hustle thing that you can put a little bit of time and effort into, so I think it's better to not have lots of, yes, globally people can set up their own, but it's not just the thing that you do lightly. There's a lot of work. As I say, there's 25 in our team that goes into this. There's a lot of work and effort that goes into changing hearts and minds and bringing the right people in, to then training them and giving them not just, at Supermums, we don't just give technical training. Everybody gets a one-to-one mentor who they meet every single week with. They get a lot of practical homework where they're testing out and developing their skills. They get career coaching. They get the soft skills training. They get the peer community, and all of those ingredients give people the confidence to launch into a new career. And then we continue to provide them with that community of support and ongoing professional development beyond that as well. And so we've built this community where people are still learning and developing and furthering things. And so there needs to be, in order to address this gap, there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. And I don't think people always appreciate that.
Well, look, I'm so glad that somebody is doing that. Heather, I think you're doing amazing work, and congratulations with the progress you're making so far. And we wish you nothing but well for the future.
Thank you.
Now, we end every episode of this podcast by asking our guest what they're excited about doing next. And that could be anything from great restaurant booked at the weekend to something that you're really looking forward to in your professional life. So, Heather, what are you excited about doing next?
Oh, I'm launching my new book, which is how to become a super Salesforce consultant. So I'm doing lots of talks.
Squeeze the word super in there.
Super, of course. Yeah. And I've got a whole trilogy of books now. Over the next Lord of the Rings sequel.
Yeah. Have you got your narrative planned out over multiple generations of Salesforce consultants?
Yeah. Become a super Salesforce admin and then become a super mum, which is about balancing career and life. And so I think going back to also a point that we talked about, it's really important to share our experiences with others and to upskill people, which is what inspires the next set of people. And so my book is really just a compilation of everything that I've learned over 12 years around managing a Salesforce project, and just being able to share that in a really digestible format for many more people to benefit. And so it's going to be launched next month as part of our 7th year anniversary. And so really excited about that to come up, because it just feels like another really big milestone.
Congratulations. We really wish you well with that. Thank you. And thanks so much for joining us today and for your time and insight.
Thank you for having me.
So a huge thanks to our guest this week, Heather. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks also to our sound and editing wizards, Ben and Louis, our confused producer, Marcel, and of course to all of our listeners. We're on LinkedIn and X, Dave Chapman, Rob Kernahan, and Sjoukje Rob. Feel free to follow or connect with us, and please get in touch if you have any comments or ideas for the show. And of course, if you haven't already done that, rate and subscribe to our podcast. See you in another reality next week.